Welcome everyone to the Forward webinar. I'm Nick Balkin, and I have the pleasure of welcoming Mteto Nyati, the Chairman of Eskom. Today we're going to talk about Mteto's personal journey, but most importantly we're also going to talk about Eskom and the changes at Eskom and how it's changed our lives by reducing the overall load shedding. But before we start, I'll give your book a bit of a plug. I really love this book, Betty on the Darkie. It's Mteto's book, and I loved it because it takes you through a journey of Mteto in the Transkei, working in his mom's shop and work his way up all the way to some of the most important jobs in South Africa. I think let's start with an interesting question. Maybe, why did you write the book, Mteto?
Yeah, look, this is a number of reasons, but the key reasons, two of them. I find myself, I'm someone who is quite active on LinkedIn, and I find myself getting a lot of requests for people who want to be mentored or to be coached on all of that. And over the years, I've taken people and mentored them, but I continue to get these requests.
Yeah.
And I just realized then that there is no way that I can meet the demand. You know, how else can I scale myself? In order for me to touch as many people who would like to at least connect with me as possible. And the only way that I knew how was to write a book. And you see the approach of the book itself, you see that it's very, very brutally honest. And it's done in such a way because it's meant to help people to understand the reality, you know, good and bad, good decisions that I've made, poor decisions that I've made, the consequences associated with that. So because it is really there to
I
drive
it to be very
development.
authentic, as you said. Some of these books we were talking earlier can be really sugar-coated, only great things about Mteto, the legend. But, you know, you really did show the good and the bad, which I think is part of life.
Exactly, you know, and many people, you know, when they look at the lives of people that they look up to, they think that it has always been great, but they don't see that actually we make decisions, we learn from that, you pick yourself up, you move forward, and that's really what I wanted to show through this book. But the second thing is that people like me, you know, black people generally, when we are born into this world, you come into this world already without having done anything. You are already labeled in a particular way. There's not too much expectations of people like me. And I wanted to use this as a platform also to demonstrate that, you know, we have got something of value that we can offer. We offer the world, you know. There are many, many people who do, but we continue to live in a world that think less of us.
Which is amazing, and I love that. And I mean, you've done an amazing amount of things in your life. So, I mean, just reading the book, and everyone will go through it. You started at Afrox, you know, worked in Nampak, Tigers. Changed tack, went into the ICT world of IBM. You know, headed up Microsoft South Africa. You know, MTN South Africa.
Listen, people think that my hope is to job hop. You know,
I was going to get there. No, I was going to say, why didn't you stay? But you did actually. You stayed actually quite long runs in places. We spoke briefly, but are there any interesting life lessons from your journey through all those companies?
I would say really for me, it's two things. One, the first thing is that I come from a relatively poor area in the Eastern Cape and in Mteto, rural area. And you look at the circumstances in that environment, really difficult environment. But what I also try to highlight through this book is that, you know, your circumstances do not define you. You know, you really can rise above your circumstance if you are very, very focused and make choices, conscious choices. We all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us.
Yeah.
The good thing about that is that we are not stuck. As a country as well, we are where we are because of the poor choices.
Yeah.
If we make different choices, we are going to be in a different place,
Totally.
which is a great thing.
Yeah.
You know? So that's the first thing. The second thing, when I look at all of that, I've changed industries.
Yeah.
But at the core, I've not changed the thing that I do.
Yeah.
I focus on problem solving, I focus on driving execution, I focus on mobilizing people to do great things.
Yes.
So across all of those industries, there's a lot of commonality in terms of the stuff that I do, but it all comes back from my engineering background, which is really about problem solving.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And it's also about people management, as you said, which is something you've had to do a few times at IBM and a whole bunch of other places.
Absolutely.
MTN, South Africa.
Yes.
Talking about people, mentors are quite close to my heart. I think there have been a few mentors in my life that really showed me maybe what I could do when I didn't believe. Maybe talk about mentors. You're talking about in the book. How important are mentors?
Yeah, you know, mentors are so important. For me, I got, you know, I remember my first job, the gentleman who was my manager also became my mentor, Neil Greenfield.
Yeah.
You know, he really shaped the trajectory of my career, you know. And it's one thing to think that, hey, you know, you've got this talent, you've got the brain. But one of the things that he continued to focus on said, you know, you can have all of the talent in the world, but if you do not have discipline, discipline is the key to everything. You know, so to me, that first grounding set me on a completely different journey. I started to, okay, this is, and you can start to see the results that come out of those choices. You know, and so Neil helped me. Mentors can shape you. These are people who care about you, and there are also people who typically, in your absence, are able to say good things about you. We need more people like that because we live in a world where it's the opposite. You know, in your absence, they say all of the bad things.
Well, in social media, they say it in front of you also.
So you need those advocates in your life, but you also need people who act like a mirror to you. You know, they are not afraid to just tell you and help you to grow as an individual. So that's what mentors did for me and coaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, it's about Eskom. So maybe any last interesting points about you or your personal life that you want to impart before we jump into Eskom?
Yeah. So look, when you look at my life, you cannot. For me, one of my values is actually is family. You know, I've got 4 values currently, and one of those is family. And I found that having a stable base at home is critical, given the challenges that we have, the demands that we have in terms of our jobs. You know, when you go home, you need to get into an environment that is welcoming you, it's like loving environment. So that I've put it as something that is key. I'm letting.
Spoken like a true engineer, where you've got 4 things in your life, planned with numbers. I like that.
You know, I tried to do 3, but in this case, 4 things. You know,
got it. I think that's great. Thank you. So now we can turn to kind of why everyone's dialed in.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I say is that I would never have taken the job. So knowing what, you were entering in Eskom, it wasn't that it was a surprise to you. Some of your other jobs, maybe you didn't know what you were getting into.
Yes.
This time, most people on the outside didn't think Eskom was fixable. So, and yet you went towards it. Maybe talk about why you took the job.
Well,
or maybe it came to you.
Don't say it when I went towards it.
I don't know.
It came to me.
Okay, well, you can explain.
It came to me and uninvited.
Okay.
You know, it came just like that.
Okay.
And now it's occupying my life, but it came just like that. Look, some of you may remember there was a time when our president was out of the country. He was visiting the US and then he went to the UK. and he cut his UK trip. All
Because of the power issues.
Because of load shedding. Because we were saying here, come back. How can you be out there when we're having this terrible situation here? And he did come back. He came back on a first day, and then the next day I got a call from him.
Okay. When you get a call from the president, you answer.
When you get a call from him, of course, I did not know that was him because I did not have, I didn't know that it was him. And then he asked that, can we meet the following day, which was a Saturday, get to his house, and we agreed to meet. I think that's probably the mistake that he made of giving me the time because I had the opportunity to think. Said,
yeah, you always struck.
He said, okay, he's not my friend, so what is it that he probably is looking for?
Yeah.
And clearly he possibly wants me to get into Eskom. But anyway, and when I got there, indeed, that's what he wanted. In fact, he wanted me to be the CEO of Eskom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's exactly what I thought he would be asking.
Yes.
And I was clear that I was going to help him understand that would be a wrong thing to do. and indeed, I tried to explain to him that, in fact, Andre is a good leader there.
Yes.
I think what's required is not to replace Andre,
yes,
but to support Andre.
Got it.
You know, and after a lot of discussion, he got it, and indeed, and said the best way for me that to help in that situation would be to join the board.
Got it.
So that's how I ended up.
So you didn't run towards it; it came to find you. It was national service to a certain extent,
to me,
right?
And it was not something that I wanted to do. But when something like that comes, you have to always ask yourself that yes, there is this opportunity that is in front of me. Am I capable? Of doing what I'm being asked?
Yeah.
You know, here is the president, but maybe you are not capable of doing this thing. You look into yourself, and then I realize that actually when I look at my experience, I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. I've done a lot of turnaround situations. When I look at this from far, when I look at the problems of Eskom, at the core of it, I thought it's the people. It's the people say, yes, symptoms appear to be maintenance and all of that. At the core is people. That, I mean, I look at it, I felt this is something that I can help with. Okay. Yeah, so that's why I was able to sign up. And also knowing that they were putting together a board that is going to be people that can, really...
So it wasn't just you.
Yeah, it's going to be a full board. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so when you got there, and I've just got a few things that I want to do. Obviously it could have been, as you said, my question was going to be, was it because the power plants were old? Was it the culture? Was it the people, internal controls? But it sounds like you thought it was the people, and when you got there, was it the people? Was it the culture? So there's always looking outside, but when you arrived, was that the issue?
And that's interesting at your point, because when we got in there, the prevailing view from management was that the issue of Eskom is that one of old.
Yeah, it was mentioned by management, as you say, internally.
It's an aging. They use the term aging fleet.
Yes.
Aging coal fleet. That's how it was described. And the answer to that aging fleet was to retire it.
Yes.
And then allow the private sector to help with the generation of renewables. So that was the prevailing view.
Yeah.
And by the way, just to take a step back, the first 2 weeks that we joined as the board there, almost every other day, we're having a board meeting.
Yeah.
And that was, each time there's change in load shedding,
well, it was crisis mode at that point.
Yeah, Minister Pravin was calling a board meeting. We had to say no.
Okay.
What are we going to say? Are we going to
You need to manage the business, not have another meeting.
We cannot be fixing, we cannot be having these board meetings.
Yeah.
Can you allow us, give us the space to understand deeply what are the systemic issues that this business have, you know? And really, to his credit, he listened, said, okay, I'm giving you the time. And that's where I, as the member, as the chairman of a committee called Business Operations Performance Committee.
Yes.
The committee looking
I'm happy you
after,
said it because it was a mouthful for me to say. So.
Business Operation Performance Committee. It's a committee looking after the performance of the power stations.
Okay,
that's what was our job, really. We did a deep dive in terms of that environment. We did a deep dive. We also called all of the power station general managers. You know, generally, boards don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying.
You only see the CEO.
I'm trying to, and you hear from the CEO and that's what.
Yeah.
But we could not do that. We really needed to understand deeply what are the issues on the ground.
Yeah.
Hear it directly from the people that are doing the work. And that was very, very insightful, you know, what was coming through that. And it helped us to understand that actually the problem has been defined in a wrong way. When you say it's the aging fleet, it must be retired. And you're looking at it, this thing, as an engineer, I always question this thing because this thing of age and machines, it does not make sense to me. If you look after it and you do the right kind of maintenance, it will continue to go. I've got a 9-year-old car. It's still performing well. You know, no problem. It will continue to serve me another 5 years. You know?
I've seen a lot of people saying that the insides of a plant can be completely different to the outside. So although it's 100, the insides might be very new. So
yes, absolutely. So you need.
So you were there, and you got the people to present to you,
and just not just presenting, having a discussion. You know, that's another thing. The presentation thing is never a good thing. Just listening one way. You need to have a conversation, having people, creating a safe space for people to open up about things. You know. We hear about this corruption. What? Tell us a little bit more. You know, and then people open up and start to understand that, you know, the issues are, for example, we've got leaders that are not leading. At all levels. We've got managers that are not managing. Right? And you think about it, think of a parent, parents. If parents are not parenting, what happens in that environment, right? And when you start to hear this thing coming from the people are sick and tired, you know, they're saying we need to follow standard operating procedures around things, and things are not being followed. Why is that? Because we've got wrong people hired in certain roles, and, you know, start to hear these things. No, we can fix this equipment. We can fix.
So that came from the bottom up. They said, guys, we can do it.
We can fix this thing. You know, we need to have the right budget to do it, and also we need to go to the people that are able to help us. By that, they mean that if you are, you know, your car is a Toyota. You need to go and take it to I don't know, some guy at the back door, you know, mechanic, you know, and expect that you are going to have super performance, you are going to have a problem. You need to take it to Toyota, a dealership that's authorized. You know, the same with this equipment, with the power station. Let us have a relationship directly with the original equipment manufacturers. Okay. You know, you hear all of this thing.
What stopped that? I mean, because I know, was it a cost issue that I can get it cheaper outside Toyota, or was
it's actually not cheaper. It's actually the other way around. It's probably 10 times more expensive.
So it's more about corruption and
it's not,
at the margin.
It's not corruption as such. It's a policy that is saying we need to be using locals. Right. It's a policy, but then that policy goes wrong. you end up at this point.
Okay.
But it's a policy. It
Yeah.
comes from a good place,
Yes.
but it ends up, its unintended consequence becomes this thing. So you end up with parts that are not genuine parts not being used, you know.
Yes.
Then we need to have a relationship directly
Yeah.
with the original equipment manufacturers,
Yes.
you know. So basically,
Yeah, I got it.
we come out of that, we realize that problem definition wrong.
Got it.
Change it. Let's work together. And now we've got engineers on this board working together
Yeah.
with management. We come up with what is called today a generation recovery plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what we have been implementing from March 20. It was approved by the board on March 2023.
Just take one step back. And
Yeah.
obviously, you talk about people. How much of the people were needed to be changed and how much of the people just needed to be managed better? And one of the key appointments, it seems, is Becky and Kamalo,
Yes.
head of generation at Eskom. It seems that you had a hand in. So talk about his importance. Talk about, you know, bringing in Becky into the system and whether there were changes that needed to be made in the general staff also.
Yeah. In all of the things that, for me, when we look at this thing, when we look at turnaround, leadership matters.
Yeah.
Leadership matters. Leadership sets the tone in everything, you know. Look at the culture of the organization, you look at the leaders. You will be able to pick up the culture just looking at the leader. So leadership mattered. So we were in the process. After doing that workshop with the people, we realized that there's so many people who are doing acting roles. We had an acting group executive for generation.
Yes.
This is the biggest, that's where we've got the most, you know, the worst situation. We do not have and we've got somebody who is not there permanently. And then I was asked to sit on the panel that is doing the interviews to find. Again, you know, you sit there, you've got these search agents, they're coming up with this list of people. You'll wonder, gee, don't you understand the problems that you have? Why are you bringing these people?
Yeah.
When we've got this problem, right? Then you realize this is just
they
a
didn't
waste
know what the problem was.
It's just a waste, you know, what a waste. We're paying these people and they are coming up with the wrong people, you know. That's why I said, look, we need somebody that has been in this environment.
Yeah.
And you keep asking around and everybody keeps saying, there's a guy that you need to go and talk to, but he's not going to take the job.
Okay.
I said, okay. Why? It's because he did the job for 6 months and the current leadership, they threw him under the bus because they had to.
They needed a scapegoat.
They needed to be seen to be doing something, you know. And he is so angry, you know. Okay. Anyway, long story short, met the guy. He repeated the same thing to me that look, this is not something that he wants to do. Anyway, I said, look, this has got nothing to do with current leadership. Yeah. We need to be thinking about the country. Yeah. You are the best person for this thing. Long story short, again, he had to go and convince his family that
it wasn't going to happen again.
He convinced them that, you know, because he said he was never going to do it, going to convince them that okay, now things have changed, it's going to help, you know. And he took the job here, and we appointed Becky. Yes. In March 2023. He grew up in Eskom. Okay. He has done all of this job, power station general manager. He has done maintenance, leading our maintenance organization, leading different things that talk to the challenges that generation is facing. Yeah. This is somebody that is highly respected by the people within Eskom. They respect him because of his knowledge, because he's very, very tough with his people. Yeah. But at the same time, this thing of tough love, you know, is tough, but he really, really cares deeply about his people. So he came in and he listed a few things to me that these are the things. If I want to take the job, you need to allow me to change
Amazing.
these people. I need to do this. I need the reporting structure. This thing of reporting.
Yeah.
There's no need for a COO here.
Yes.
And all of that. So I said.
So it's amazing what good people can do, right?
Yeah. And we put him in. Said I don't have to take 6 months to change these people because of the process.
Yeah.
I need to change these people like yesterday.
Yes.
So give me yes, we've got the mandate,
Yeah.
And possibly 45% of some of the power station managers were changed.
That's amazing. Just this pace of recovery, it's just been phenomenal. Like, one thing is to think it's broken, but the other thing is how quickly it got fixed.
Yes.
And that's some of the examples you're giving, because you didn't take 6 months with committees to make decisions. They happen very quickly, some of these
So
decisions.
that was that, and you think of the minister as well.
Yeah.
Ray played a big role, Mr. Pravin Gordhan here.
Yeah.
He, just again listening to the people, those workshops, you get insights of what the
Did he
issues
sit in on
are.
those?
No, he was not there, but we're coming back, we're playing it back to him.
Got it.
For example, here are the people, these people are so committed, but their salaries increases, no salary increase for 5 years.
Yes.
These are people who are expecting them to do
miracles,
to miracles,
Yeah.
and no salary. It's like collective punishment.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
Can we change this thing?
Yeah.
We need also the mechanism, incentives to drive the behavior that we want. So we need short-term incentives, long-term incentives reintroduced, because they have been removed by Tito many years ago because he felt that this guy was not performing.
Yes. Is that an issue that government doesn't really have incentives for people? It's like a fixed salary, and generally they're paid to do a job, but not incentivized to do it better.
You see, incentives matter. They drive the behavior.
Yeah.
If, for example, now we are at a point, I'm fast forwarding, we're at a point now, I call it a virtuous cycle, where things are just improving on their own, because we have created this environment where there's competition between the power stations. They are trying to get better and better.
There's a scorecard, they see
and then there's driving for that. So it's no longer something that's driven, it's self-driven.
Yes.
Right? But through the incentives that you have created, so that's important. To have those incentives, to get those being introduced into the environment was not easy.
No.
But
especially when they're used to something, to make the change.
Yeah, with the support that we got from Pravin, it was really fantastic. So we started to have all of that. Plus, the other thing that I'm not mentioning yet is, I've not mentioned, is the fact that we needed the funds. You can have all of the plans in the world, but if you do not have the budget. So we got, in February, we got the Parliament to approve the Eskom debt relief.
Yes.
Which then, our financial year begins in 1st of April.
Yes.
So when we went to that new financial year, we've already came up now with a budget, which is informed by the plan that we have. We need to do maintenance for this following year. We need to do that maintenance, and in order to do, when you're doing maintenance, you're actually taking away capacity.
Yes.
From producing capacity.
Well, there's planned and unplanned. And maybe you can tell people what that is, because you got this thing that you need to juggle, which is you can keep the lights on but not do maintenance. But then it all seems good. But then things will fall down. So you basically had to do more planned maintenance.
We had to do planned maintenance. As we're doing that, our EAF, energy availability factor, goes down.
Yes.
And that impacts.
That's a hard decision to make.
Start to have more load shedding.
But for a good reason.
Yes.
It's hard to tell people.
It's a blend. We are in a terrible situation because we're trying to do the right thing. So
was that important? How important was that to take planned maintenance up?
It's the only way. That is the reason why many leaders before have not done it, because they are worried about all of the criticism that I'm going to get
Yes.
from the country, instead of saying, I'm going to be doing this thing
Yes.
for the next year.
Yes.
And we're going to be beaten up, everybody's going to be calling us names,
Yeah.
but we know that we're doing the right thing.
Was that important that you shielded the executives to do that? Because sometimes these executives need someone to do that because they can't stand up and say that. They need someone to be the middleman between them.
You see, we had now, when you look at this plan, it was approved by the board, but also approved by the minister.
Yeah.
It was also approved by the president. In fact, the president asked me,
Yes.
together with Andre, to go and present it
Yes.
to all of his key stakeholders.
Yes. Okay.
All of them. So we had a buy-in.
Yes.
And the big pushback that we're getting from all of these stakeholders saying, 2 years, we don't have 2
Yeah, we
years.
wanted-
It was one like yesterday, we said, no, even 2 years is like
You're trying to caution
it's a
them.
lot, yeah. So already people, so when now they're seeing load shedding is becoming worse and worse, they understand because you engage with them up
Yes.
front and you start to manage up.
Yes.
Manage the board, through the board you manage all of the stakeholders. It was very, very important to shield the executives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had, the last point
Yeah.
around this, we had to also budget for 30 billion rand
Okay.
of diesel
Yes.
because you want to minimize the impact of load shedding. So
Yes.
you end up using...
So in that year, you needed to,
Yes.
because there was more planned
Yes,
maintenance.
you end up using the...
So you're spending more money, you're spending more diesel.
It's like
there's no
crazy.
power.
It's like crazy, Yeah. But you have to go that direction and keep going that direction.
Because
and to
you
also,
know that the year after.
And you cannot take the country through that and then say, after you have done that, sorry, I don't have results.
Yes.
You have to show results. Yes. So to also guarantee us that we were going to have results, as the board, we ask management to go and look for an independent consultants that will monitor the execution of the plan and report to the board directly.
Got it.
So we appointed a company by the name of WSP, which was there alongside with management, flagging issues as they come up, address those issues immediately.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I think two things. I mean, sometimes we talk in big picture, but I always like to get into the detail.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the generation operational recovery plan.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that was interesting to me, and it's maybe more you as an engineer that just strikes you, but 6 of the worst performing power stations contributed to 70% of the failures. Just understanding that is a key outcome to know that that's where you need to focus.
So you remember I said we, as the engineers on the board, sat with management. I said, go and let's work on this. Let's try because we cannot be everywhere. Yes. We need to understand when we need to focus. Yeah. It was interesting when we got that the analysis coming back that it's only 6 power stations that are causing us problems. Yeah. If we can just focus on these 6 power stations, we are going to see a huge difference because they contribute 70% of our problems. Amazing. That analysis alone made a big difference. Pulling people from other power stations to focus on these 6 power stations, putting our best people in there, And then, one of the interesting outcomes was you planned for energy availability factor to be 70% by end of March 2025. Yes. And these last 2 weeks, you are at a 70% energy availability factor. Consistently at 70%.
Which is amazing. So you got the results.
We had our 2-year plan. Yeah. The energy availability factor, when we started the journey, was 51%.
Amazing. Yeah.
We said that by 1st of April, 2024, it should be at 65%. Yeah. We did not make that. It was 61 and not 65. Yeah. But a month later, we're already at 65%. Yeah. So
you were close.
We're close, yeah. And we said that in 2025, as you have said, the energy availability factor should be 70%. Already this year, we're at that level. And this is what I mean by a virtuous cycle, where things now just, the excellence is just
in chaos.
Get in there. People are driving for excellence and improving their power stations. There's this competition in there, and there's pride as well. Huge element of pride, because in all honesty, there is no other organization on this continent has got so much the talent that we have as in Eskom in this space. But somehow,
but you wouldn't think that from the outside.
Somehow we have painted them as these people that are dumb. These are very, very smart people. It's a concentration. There is no other organization on the continent that has got so much skill. But they believed the narrative that was out there. So our job as leaders is to help them to connect with who they are, connect with their greatness. That's another job of the leadership, driven by Dan and together with Becky.
And then just one other more detailed practical question. Was there an issue with the coal? There was a story around that the quality of coal wasn't good enough also. So when it was arriving, it was, effectively not made for purpose for the power station. What did you do? There was some interesting stuff that I read about how you managed the quality of the coal.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things there. One is that we, in some cases, you'll find that coal, the quality coal, instead of being sent to our power stations, was sent overseas because of the prices, Getting better prices there. We get stones in South Africa, we deliver stones, Think about this thing.
But were you paying for stones or were you paying for coal?
We're paying for coal.
And you were getting stones.
Yes. But think about this. Remember I said that managers that were not managing and leaders that were not leading. How do you only realize a month later or 2 months later that what was delivered to me was stones? How does that happen when if you've got processes, right? You've got right control. So by putting the right leaders, you are able to pick up without having implemented anything, just having the right people looking at things. You are able to pick up.
Science.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. So you drive that discipline. But over and above that, to make sure that you have a foolproof kind of system. We have put together, working with Vodacom, come up with a system that does what is called geofencing. So the trucks they deliver, if they get out of the route, you are able to pick it up just like that. So using
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Absolutely, I think it was Ronald Reagan who said that, and I agree 100%. We trust him, but we want to make sure that absolutely.
The one thing that there's speculation around the diesel, right, around the election. Just set the record straight. I think you've done it in another interview, that people thought that Eskom was just burning diesel to keep, the power on for the election. Maybe just settle that story.
So you remember I said that we budgeted for the last financial year 30 billion rand of diesel. We ended up spending 33. It's a lot of diesel that we had to, but that bought us the reliability that we have today. Because now our coal fleet is more reliable. That's why we're able to have an energy availability factor of 65, 70%, because of the work that we did during that time. I like to say that I think people who are in the weight business say that summer bodies are made in winter. In our case,
Eskom's recovery is made in a crisis.
Winter capacity. Winter capacity is made in summer. So we do most of our maintenance in summer. That gives us the ability to now have the capacity that we need.
You're just managing the supply and demand around.
Absolutely. So So when you look at where we are now,
Yeah.
because these machines are so reliable,
Yes.
we hardly use what is called the open cycle gas turbines.
Yeah.
You know, we've just come out last week with a statement that compared to the last year,
Yes.
we've saved close to 9.8 billion rand in the first
Yeah, it's the year-to-date number, right?
year-to-date number.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So compared
So
to
it'll be
last
more
year.
than that by the end of the year.
Yes, so it's much more than that.
Yeah.
You know, you remember it was 33 billion.
Yes.
We're not even going to get to 10.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know, and all of that money, where does it go?
Yes.
I mean, you are the numbers guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes to the bottom line.
Yeah.
So when you think now about profitability
Yes.
of this company,
Yeah.
it changes the picture.
We'll talk about it.
We are going to have what? We're going to have more revenue because there's no load shedding.
Yes.
So the top line is going up.
Yeah.
And
less diesel.
We have less diesel. Plus, remember that debt relief,
Yeah.
most of that goes to paying, of course, the debt and some of the interest. So
Yes.
our interest charge comes
also coming
down.
down.
So a combination of that is an interesting thing for Eskom.
So Eskom obviously is in the plan of government where they're going to receive around 250 billion, in debt relief. In your mind, given the way Eskom's going, operating better, spending less on diesel, do you think that the days of coming back to government for more money are done, or do you think it's just situation dependent?
It's not situation dependent. We are driving an Eskom that is going to never have to go back to government. It needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. If we go back, we would not have done our job. Our job is to leave behind an Eskom that is able to feed itself.
Okay,
really. That's the job. That's why I'm already indicating now that this current financial year is going to be an interesting one.
Good.
When it comes to the profitability of this business.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, how confident are you that we're done with load shedding?
Look, when we set out the plan of we need to from 51 to 65 to 70.
Yeah.
At 65, in fact, at 60, already there is really no load shedding at 60. At 60, but you may not have the margin. You need to have a reserve margin, right? So at 65, you're starting to have that reserve margin.
Okay.
But there's no load shedding. At 70, you have close to 10 to 15% reserve margin, which means over and above the maximum demand, I still have capacity of 15% more. Okay. And that's where we are now.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so turning to the next step, you becoming chairman. You became chairman in October 23.
Yes.
How long are you going to still be at Eskom? You've done an amazing job, and your national service has been, I don't know, I call it national service, but it's been amazing for the country. But how long are you still going to be there?
Our term ends in October next year. It's a 3-year term.
Yeah.
The minister has indicated that he would like minimum disruption when it comes to the board. There needs to be stability at that level, and it's something that is
still to be decided.
Like anybody, it's the right thing to do. But we all need to be asking ourselves at that point whether am I still required?
You're required. You're not going anywhere.
We've got other people. So we need to have that discussion at that point. Yeah. But right now, up to the end of our term, that's my focus.
Just on renewables. So I mean, it's quite an interesting one. Renewables have grown as a percentage of the overall energy mix. What do you see? How do you see renewables playing a role in your mind, having been at Eskom? And is there a point where renewables can't get bigger as a percentage of the grid that becomes a stability issue?
If you look when we have, everybody keeps saying that they are off the grid until you,
Winter.
no, until the weather for a week, even for 2 days changes, right?
Yeah.
And then you do not have this battery that can carry you, because I don't think you can,
You get like 4 hours or something.
If you're doing your math, is your solar battery combination, the next source of energy cannot be your diesel generator because that's very expensive. It should be Eskom,
Yes.
right? So most people don't go to the diesel generator. They say that they're off grid, but they don't go to that. They go to Eskom. So we see ourselves as Eskom as the energy supply of last resort, and that's what we always have to be. That we have to be that. When everything else fails, we need to be there. We need to, so we're positioning ourselves for that. So that what that means is that you need to have a fair amount of base load within your mix. It cannot all be 100% renewables. Otherwise,
batteries are expensive.
You are putting the country at risk. So I see us getting way at some point, sometime in the future, to a 50-50, and that will be a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
That's a lot. That will be a lot.
And one of the ways that you enable that is obviously the transmission system. So you've had the splitting of the transmission from the generation, and there's talk that the transmission needs around 400 billion. I mean, it's slightly different because now a separate company.
National Transmission Company of South Africa.
How are we going to fund the upgrade of the transmission?
So from our balance sheet, we should be able to fund, when we look at the unbundling of the National Transmission Company, it happened 1st of July.
Yes.
Now it's fully operational. It's got its own board. Those are some of the decisions that we have made as this board, the chairman, the appointment of Dan Marokane, the CEO, the setting up of this entity, making sure that we've got the non-executive directors, good, world-class non-executive directors of National Transmission Company of South Africa. So good thing. So we allow them to make that decision. But as Eskom, already before the separation, before the unbundling, we had a view that we can fund the next 3 to 4 years of the transmission plan. It's called TDP, Transmission Development Plan.
Okay.
We need to do close to about 1,400 kilometers a year, right? So that we can fund that, we've got that. But beyond that 4 years, that's where we start to have challenges. That's where we still have time, but we need to figure out how we can work together with the private sector there. The private sector, I think, can come to the party. We've seen this thing. We've done it with things like toll roads, where you build a toll road, you operate it over 20 years, and you transfer it back to government after that 20 years. Everybody win, everybody. We can use
that kind of methodology.
The kind of methodology where you pick up your own line. I'm going to do, I don't know, Northern Cape, 10 kilometers of line. It's going to be Nick line, and you do that for 20 years and you hand over to government at the end of the period.
It's amazing.
So that's how we're looking at it. In the past, clearly people were uncomfortable to work with the private sector. That's not where we are now. We all need it. We need each other.
I got it. And we'll, just on the last thing on the renewables, obviously there's some coal plants that are being decommissioned in 2030. Will the renewables be the piece that fills the gap in your mind?
It's a combination. It's a combination of we're talking about nuclear now.
Yes, I have read that.
2,500 megawatts of nuclear.
Is that going to, the famous story is always, it seems like a great idea when you start the nuclear, but then with the cost of the build and the price, it could end up being maybe, it's the one that really surprises people on how much they cost.
Yeah. Look, I think...
But it's one of the considerations.
It's one of the considerations. I think it is something that is doable. It's not something that is way out of us as a country to afford it.
Yeah.
If you look at Quebec,
yes.
Quebec is going to serve us for another 20 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's already served us for... it's the cheapest,
I couldn't believe it when
form
I saw
of energy.
That. But by a long way.
By a long way. But that upfront cost is but it paid for itself alone. So we need to think about that. We've got these experiences. Let's not go and reinvent anything.
Yes.
We know what happened in Quebec. We know how reliable that power station is.
Yes.
We know how safe it is. We know the running of it, how cost effective it is. Because we need to be thinking about the businesses of South Africa. The tariff, we cannot continue to be driving up and up the tariff. If we do not think about how we're going to be driving down the costs, we are going to be in trouble. So the mix of going to renewables combined with this, combined with the nuclear, may be the right kind of a combination to help us to drive down the costs.
So I do follow you on Twitter or X or whatever it is. I know you're fond of a quote. So I'm going to give you a chance, if you have one. If you don't, it's also okay, of an interesting quote that you'd like to end the discussion with.
I would like to end discussion with, there's a quote by Ananias. It's called life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Life shrinks or expand in proportion to one's courage. I think this is where we are as a country now. We need courage, from our leaders.
Yes.
We do need to, we cannot continue to be doing the same thing that we've done in the past. Some of the things that we need to be doing may not be popular, but these are the right things for our country. The first one was the GNU. It's not the most popular thing, but it's the right thing for our country. We need to do that. The second one, I think, getting consequences. If you do things that are wrong, there needs to be consequences to that. We should not be afraid to hold people accountable. And doing some of those things are going to set our country on the right track, bring back discipline, because there's so much lawlessness in our environment. I've not seen any country that thrives at the back of chaos. You need to have some kind of focus, structure, and discipline. And that's what we are missing now. We need courageous leaders at all levels, not just government, public sector, private sector. I used to be in the private sector and saw certain things. When you start to realize that there are certain wrong things are being done, and people, just because it's that environment, people are uncomfortable with doing certain. We need to take action wherever. If wrong things are being done, we need to take action. So courageous leadership is something that will help us to really help this country to realize its full potential.
Well, I love that. I love that closing, and I love that discussion. I think everyone else is going to love the discussion. It was very frank, open. Hopefully that last quote of courage, I think you had the courage to take on a role that was very tough. And to be honest, it helped the country. It was national service. And I hope governments see it, and they see what one or two individuals just coming in and working hard can do. So let this be an example, maybe, to the people of what can be achieved by only a few people.
Yes. That's why I was saying leadership matters. Leadership matters. One person, two people here and there, they can they change the trajectory of a particular entity.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. We really enjoyed having you. And we'll chat soon.